Welcome back. The time is 9:33. You're still tuned in to Salam Media on the Wednesday edition of News and Views with me, Salailo Makwidere. And as I mentioned before we went to the break, we'll be going to the polls on the 29th of May. So in less than a month's time, I will be going to the elections. And as we normally do here on Salam Media, on one of my favorite segments is hashtag Know Your Manifesto. And this time we'll be in conversation with Fazloodien Abrahams. He's an attorney and National Chairperson of the National Colored Congress. He's going to be giving us insight on their party, some of their key issues that they look to tackle when it comes to when they come to be elected in the upcoming elections, and why NCC, why particularly go for that colored vote in a democratic, diverse South Africa, a country that we are. So he's joining us via StreamYard. Fazloodien Abrahams, thank you so much for joining us on StreamYard, and welcome to Salam Media.
Walaikum salam, and greetings to all your listeners. Thank you for having me.
First and foremost, before we go anywhere, I think we'll start with a prevalent question that I feel like maybe you guys have gotten more times than not. South Africa is, there seems to be a vacuum of power right now. The ground seems to be very fertile for political parties to flourish, considering maybe the failures of the ANC in the last 30 years. Why did you guys choose to particularly go for the colored vote? Why that demographic when the ground is seemingly so fertile, to appease to everyone? I think everyone in South Africa right now is looking for political home. People are looking for different options because what's currently on the table right now and what's been on the table for the past 30 years seems to not be working.
Well, thank you for the question. It's quite prevalent that national government and the provincial government has failed the country, its citizens. If you look at the national government, you still have places like Khayelitsha, Langa, Gugulethu, where people are living in shacks. So clearly they haven't really considered what they stood for many years ago, pre-1994, where the fight was for the poor and marginalized. And the same with the Western Cape provincial government as well. We are still finding ourselves being marginalized, where the rich is getting richer. They are being, service delivery is definitely being delivered to their areas. And the poorer areas, currently known as the predominantly colored and black areas, which I've just mentioned, are ignored completely when it comes to service delivery. So therefore, the National Colored Congress, previously known as the Colored Congress, the Cape Colored Congress, we identified that it's unfair, it's unconstitutional for the government to ignore the poor and marginalized, which is what they really stood up for back in the days before apartheid. And the fact that it's still being ignored cannot continue. And that's what gave rise to the National Colored Congress today.
How would you answer someone that might say, we live in a democratic South Africa, we're all about inclusion and, everyone being represented in, politics or whatever, structures that they find themselves in. And they say the NCC is, planting seeds of division in a country that's only 30 years into democracy and being an inclusive country like we are. How would you answer someone like that and say it's essentially racist?
The concept is based on the fact that the colored people are still being marginalized. It's as simple as that. And that is where we're starting off. We're starting to rise up and identify that we need to do something at home. And that is, like our president said, charity begins at home. We're starting at home, and then we'll expand to other areas and other races. But ultimately, it's about representing the poor and marginalized citizens of South Africa. And people are focusing on the race issue instead of looking at the high levels of corruption that government is currently perpetuating at the cost of the poor and marginalized citizens, which they are supposed to represent and see to.
I want us to touch on, some of the key, key factors of your manifesto. If you can just maybe sum it up as short as you can. What is the NCC most passionate about, and what does it promise, the residents of the Western Cape and of broader South Africa, if they were to be voted in the upcoming elections?
Let's look at the most important one right now is the housing crisis that we have. There are people living in backyards. There are people living in shacks. Pre-1994, there's people who's on the waiting list, on that pre-1994 waiting list, who still hasn't received a house. So we're calling on the amount of the qualification for RDP houses to be increased. So people are currently saying you have to earn not more than 3,500 rand in order to qualify for an RDP. It needs to be increased. So that's the first thing we're calling for. So, and then the other aspect is the backyard dwellers. We definitely need that to be resolved as well. And then we also have, as an attorney, I find myself fighting with provincial government at the moment, where they have not issued title deeds of people who bought houses prior to 1994 and after that. So Mitchell's Plain is one of the first areas that was created after 1994. And there are still people that have passed away. Their children are waiting 2-3 years for the provincial government to issue the title deeds. And that is it's definitely an indictment against the colored community, where we still don't have any rights to housing at the moment. That's
I think
the first one.
Yeah.
The other, thank you. The other aspect is health issues at the moment. The amount of hospitals that are available for the communities there's a deficit. People are standing in lines. You have pensioners having to stand in line at a hospital early in the morning in the cold winter without any cover of protection against the elements of the weather, and that is completely disregarding the fact that they are elderly, the fact that they are frail. We need to protect our elderly, and they cannot be seen standing in lines early at the health facilities in order to receive medication, and then they have to spend a whole day there. That's completely unacceptable. Also, the land reform, we are calling for the land reform without compensation. We have seen for many years, the government has spoken about the land reform and the finalizing of the land claims, yet nothing has been done. We have people waiting for 10 years, 15 years already, trying to resolve their land claims, and everything has just come to a standstill. If you go now, if you take a drive to District 6, you will find that those roads are filled with buses of a certain transport company. Now, I'm not sure whether the city is charging them for parking their buses there. It's as if it's a depot, and that needs to be looked into. But yet District 6 is still empty. Nothing has been done. Here and there, a few houses has been built. But when are they going to finalize the land claims and the return of District 6 and the other areas to our people? That needs to be resolved as well. So I think that's what we're looking at, basically, if you look at the main issues of housing, health, and land reform. There are many more, of course.
Definitely. I want us to touch a bit on the Western Cape, which is seemingly you guys' base and stronghold. I was in Cape Town, I think, about this past weekend, and there seems to be a shift, with regards to how the colored population has been responding to the Western Cape DA-RAN government. There's a lot of disdain, if I can put it that way, and there's definitely a shift coming up. That's what I sensed and noticed during my time there. What's behind this? Because previously, it was there, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. Where we hosted a debate down there, and the DA candidate was not even allowed to speak. They didn't want to see his face. What's behind this? What's behind this shift in attitude towards the Democratic Alliance?
When government fails its people, you ultimately get a regression of democracy. And what you're finding right now is the people's minds and their eyes have opened. And what you're finding is a resilience under the principle of democracy. And that is what is needed in this country. That government can no longer take advantage of people, and the people are standing up. Their eyes are open. They know that they are being oppressed further and further, and they're being marginalized, and they're saying enough is enough. They have been pushed all the way into the corner, and the NCC has stood up for our people, and that is where we will bring change right now in this country, come 29th May 2024.
And realistically speaking, on your ambitions, where does NCC, look to see itself after the 29th of May, when those elections are over and the votes have been counted?
The NCC is a very young political party, and we are currently acknowledging that there's a lot of work that needs to go into growth, stabilizing, and understanding what it is to govern. Right now, we are saying that we prefer to be part of the opposition. And as time goes by, we will gain momentum. Our ideology will evolve, our principles will evolve in order to ensure we get rid of corruption and we get to represent and bring equality to the country.
The upcoming elections, are said by many poised to be one that are going to be determined by coalitions. We've seen examples of coalitions, particularly here in the city of Johannesburg. What's the NCC's position on coalitions? What would advise you working with the political party?
We will have to discuss that after elections. One cannot decide on a coalition or which political party you want to go in prior to elections. You don't know what the other political party would ultimately change their principles and their ideology. And we've seen it a lot in current or existing political parties. They say one thing and they do another thing. They have destroyed the definition of what it means to be a political party who represents its people. They have destroyed the concept of what it means to be a politician. And we as the NCC wish to bring that back, give credence, give credibility to the name of what it means to be a politician, and that is to represent its people. And democracy as well, which is power for the people, by the people. And once we achieve that, we will be in a much better position to get rid of those corrupt, unethical politicians that's currently in the system.
Let me give you a scenario. What if there's someone who's in Kailicha or Nyanga at the current moment? They've just caught the back end of this interview, and when we're about to wrap up, they realize that, well, the name of the party is the National Colored Congress, and they're Black African, and they might have considered voting for you. Do people of other races have a home in the NCC? And are you encouraging that? Are you boldly saying, we might be calling ourselves the NCC, but we welcome everyone? Or is this party exclusively for colored people and pushing the interests of the colored people, particularly of the Western Cape?
The name does as much as what we stand for. We have different races, and what it means to be colored means that you are a part of a mixed race. You need to understand that many of our colored folk comes from different countries where they were brought to South Africa as slaves, and the majority of our colored folk are the original inhabitants of Cape Town, particularly South Africa, in general, all the way up to the Northern Cape, all over South Africa, in fact. And there's every single one of us in South Africa could be considered as a colored individual because we belong to various races, and also more importantly, we are made up of a mixed race. I myself, I am from two cultures, And there are so many people who are currently from a different race. One would say that the mother's from a European, and the father is perhaps from a Xhosa or Zulu speaking, and that is what you have as a culture. So we invite everybody, because what we stand for is for justice. We stand for equality, and that is something that should be applied to everybody in this country, not just a particular race. But this is where we are right now. We are cleaning our own backyard. We are standing up for our own people. And as we succeed in that stand, we will expand it to the greater country.
All right. I think eloquently put there, Fazloodien. I think we're going to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for giving us your time and giving us insight on the NCC and what you guys are all about. All the best going into the 29th of May. And yeah, we'll chat after the elections and try to dissect how you guys did.
Thank you for having me, and all the best to you.
There you go. Atenian National Chairperson of the National Colored Congress, Fazloodien Abrahams, giving us insight on the NCC, the National Colored Congress, and what they're all about. X, what about this party? Do they have your vote? No? Yes? Your vote is your secret? Olani, they're saying his vote is a secret. I think the NCC might have appealed to him. I'm not sure. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be speaking to the mayor of George, Executive Mayor Leon van Wyk. I'm sure you've been seeing on the news about that the tragic collapse of a building, and about 6 people that have lost their lives, and more than 40 people who are still trapped under the rubble. So the executive mayor of George, Leon van Wyk, are going to be giving us the latest on what's currently happening in that part of the world. How many bodies have been repatriated, how many survivors are there, and most importantly, the cause of this collapse and the construction company. I mean, a lot has been said about them, not being found. Nobody knows who they are, where they are. They just packed up and left. So we'll be getting more insight on that with the executive mayor of George, Mr. Leon van Wyk, right after the break.